We're joined now from our central London studio by the journalist and Middle East analyst Nabila Ramdani. Morning to you. So these talks go on in Geneva. For the first time, the opposite sides are in the same room. What hope do you hold out?
Well, this is actually a small piece of positive news that the two sides have eventually met in the same room in the presence of the UN envoy, Lakhdar Brahimi. And it might seem like a routine point, but it's actually a major breakthrough. Remember, up until last night, the two sides, the representatives of the Assad regime and opposition groups, were literally not talking to each other, and they had refused to meet face to face. And the Syrian foreign minister had even threatened to walk out of the peace talks altogether. But it still remains the case that, one side views the other as barbaric, autocratic murderers, and the other side views the rest of them as Al-Qaeda terrorists. And it would not be an exaggeration to say that there is a bitter enmity between the two sides. And frankly, this is hardly surprising given that so far the conflict in Syria has claimed conservatively 150,000, lives since 2011 and has made close to 10 million people homeless in the worst humanitarian crisis of the century. The views of the two sides remain diametrically opposed. Opposition groups still want to see effectively the communique of the Geneva I talks of 2012 implemented, and that is a transitional government and, crucially, the removal of President Assad, while the Syrian regime still maintains that their president should remain where he is, and that is in power. So that is the starting point of these talks, and clearly there is no common ground to them, and that gives an indication of how little can be achieved, frankly.
OK, Nabila, we're told that the issue of the president is off the table. That is not even a starting point. But what then is achievable? There's talk of aid passages, there is talk of ceasefires, prisoner exchanges. Do you think those things can be agreed?
Well, I think, there's a small, as you said, talk about achieving local ceasefires, indeed exchanging prisoners and guaranteeing safe corridors for the delivery of humanitarian aid. But I personally believe that these things can be achieved and are often achieved on the ground, and you don't need international peace conferences to bring these about. But I think what is also noticeable is that the international community is also divided on how to negotiate with the warring sides. And I believe that, for example, the fact that Iran has been is not present at the peace talk is a major mistake. It's an open secret that the Iranian government is propping up the Assad regime and therefore should be included in these peace talks. And there were also suggestions initially that Assad should have been present at the peace talks. And of course, this would have outraged, millions of people and would have put himself in a very insecure position. But I do believe that the history of conflict resolution suggests that you have to bring all sides around the negotiating table to avoid wars from going on and on, which is clearly what's happening in Syria.
Nabila, thanks very much.